remember at the age of 21, wondering what it would mean to follow Jesus. I'd just finished university and life stretched out before me like an open plain. What would it look like to be a Christian? How would it affect my choices? And how do I live in a world where not everyone follows Jesus? They're important questions for all of us, aren't they? But they're also the kinds of questions that were likely asked by the early church. You see, Christianity in the early years was only a minority movement with little power and influence. They too were trying to work out what living as a Christian looked like in their context, under the shadow of the great and mighty Roman Empire. You see, in this first century world, everyone was expected to worship the Greco-Roman gods, and sometimes the Roman emperor. They had a civic duty to engage in various rituals such as burning incense to the gods at festivals, making sacrifices at the temples, and paying homage to the emperor as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. The pressure to conform was everywhere. In fact, some had already been persecuting for choosing Jesus above the others. How was a follower of Jesus to respond? Well, God speaks, and his answer came to a church leader called John in a form of a series of powerful dream visions. John wrote the visions down and then sent them to 7 churches across Asia Minor. Today, we can read them and learn about them in the book of Revelation. One of the most important visions that John receives takes him behind the natural world, takes him to the throne room of heaven. There's a great and mighty throne, and it's encircled by a rainbow. And in front of the throne is a sea of glass, clear as crystal. Around the throne, there are 24 elders on smaller thrones, and they have crowns on their head that they lay down. And then there are winged creatures, and they're singing worship songs. And John's attention is drawn to the one who sits on the throne. In his right hand, is a scroll. And a voice calls out, "Who is worthy to open the scroll?" Silence descends. Is anyone worthy? John begins to weep. Who can open this important document? Who can understand the key to God's kingdom? John hears a voice calling out, it's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And he recognizes that title because it comes from a promise of the Messiah. But then what appears? The spotlight turns to the stage and he sees not a lion, but a lamb. A lamb that looks like it's been slain. Hang on. It has 7 horns and 7 eyes. This is not an ordinary lamb. This lamb has eyes of perfect vision. This lamb has 7 horns, the ancient symbol of strength. This lamb looks weak. It looks like it's been slain. But in this lamb is the secret to God's kingdom, the secret to God's strength. And of course, we know that this vision is a symbolic one and that Jesus represents the Lamb of the throne. And so all of the people in the throne room begin to break out in song, "Worthy is the Lamb that was slain." What was God saying to the first century church in amongst all their questions, under the shadow of the Roman Empire that called them to worship the emperor and other gods? God was saying, the one who sits on the throne is a lamb who offered his life in self-sacrificial love and who calls us to follow. The truth is that this lamb looks weak, but in this weakness is strength. In this weakness is power to overcome the ways of evil. That as the early church followed the Lamb, they would see victory. You know, that message of Revelation is the same one that calls us today. What does it look like to follow Jesus today? Well, it looks like following the ways of the Lamb, to love sacrificially, to live righteously, to do good to others, to be people who stay faithful to the ways of the Lamb. And that's what the early church did. History tells of their incredible witness in the shadow of the Roman Empire. They learnt to love the needy. They cared for those who hurt them. They reached out to people. They stayed faithful in prayer. And as they did, the church grew and became strong, and evil was overcome. What a beautiful and profound God conversation we can learn from today. Thanks for listening to Everyday God Conversations. For more on having your own God conversation, go to godconversations.com.